Dr. Lee Minho was checking his equipment readings when the emergency alarm started blaring through Research Station Alpha 7. The sound echoed off the metal walls, making everyone stop what they were doing. Something was wrong in the lower levels. Minho grabbed his medical kit and rushed toward the elevator. As the head of xenobiology for the station, he was responsible for the health of all alien species working there. The Valorians were their main research partners, tall, graceful beings with skin that looked like flowing water mixed with starlight. Their blue skin could shift from deep ocean colors to bright sky blues depending on their emotions. The elevator dropped him down to the crystal cave system beneath the station. These caves were partly natural and partly carved by ancient civilizations. The walls sparkled with thousands of tiny crystals that gave off a soft, peaceful light. But today, something felt different. The air seemed heavier, and there was a strange smell he couldn't identify. "Doctor, over here!" shouted Jin, one of the human technicians. His voice sounded panicked. Minho followed the voice deeper into the tunnels. The crystal formations grew larger and more complex as he went further in. Some of the crystals were taller than him, creating a maze of shimmering pillars. The light they gave off made strange shadows dance on the walls. That's when he saw her. Kira lay crumpled near a section of the cave that was usually off-limits. She was one of the younger Valorian researchers, barely past adult age by her species standards. Her normally beautiful blue skin looked wrong, terribly wrong. Starting from her fingertips and spreading up her arms, her skin was turning grey and hard like stone. "Kira," Minho dropped to his knees beside her. "What happened?" Her eyes opened slowly. They were usually bright blue like sapphires, but now they looked cloudy and dim. I was curious," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "The old tunnel. My grandmother told stories." Minho looked around and saw what she meant. Behind her was an opening in the cave wall that he'd never noticed before. It looked like it had been sealed for a very long time, but something had broken through the barrier. Ancient symbols were carved around the entrance, worn smooth by countless years. "I found something," Kira continued, struggling to speak. "A sphere. It was beautiful, warm to touch." Her words came out in short gasps. Minho examined her arms more closely. The grey stone wasn't just on the surface, it seemed to go all the way through her skin. Where her blue colouring had been, there was now cold, lifeless grey that felt rough under his fingers. It was spreading slowly but steadily upward, already past her elbows. Other Valorians started arriving. Word had spread quickly through their community on the station. Elder Zenth, their senior scientist, took one look at Kira and made a sound of deep sadness. "The curse of the ancestors," he said, shaking his head. "She has touched something forbidden. The old warnings exist for good reasons." "What curse?" Minho asked. "This looks like some kind of medical condition, maybe poisoning or a biological reaction." "No, human doctor," Elder Zenth replied firmly. "This is beyond your medicine. Our people tell stories of those who disturb the sacred places. They turn to stone as punishment. There is no cure. We can only make her comfortable in her final hours." But Minho wasn't ready to give up. As a scientist, he didn't believe in curses. Everything had an explanation, even if they didn't understand it yet. He looked at Kira's frightened face and made a promise to himself and to her. "We're going to figure this out," he told her quietly. "I won't let you become stone." Minho carried Kira to the medical bay, her body feeling heavier with each step. The grey stone had now spread past her shoulders, and he could feel how solid those parts had become. It wasn't like normal skin that had hardened. It was actually turning into real stone, complete and permanent. "Put her on bed 7, he told Nurse Kim, who was already preparing the equipment. "And get me a full bioscanner set up. I want to see what's happening inside her body." The other doctors and researchers gathered around as Minho began his examination. Dr. Park, the station's head physician, shook his head sadly. "Minho, I understand you want to help, but maybe we should focus on pain management. Make her last hours peaceful." "Her last hours?" Minho looked up from adjusting the scanner. "She's 23 years old in human terms. I'm not giving up on her." Kira's breathing had become shallow and difficult. The stone had reached her neck, and every breath seemed to take enormous effort. Her beautiful blue eyes looked at Minho with a mixture of hope and fear. "Doctor," she whispered, "it's getting harder to breathe. My chest feels so heavy." Minho took tissue samples from the edge where her normal skin met the grey stone. Under the microscope, what he saw made his breath catch. This wasn't just petrification. There was something moving in her cells. "That's impossible," he muttered, adjusting the microscope's magnification to maximum power. Tiny structures, smaller than anything he'd ever seen, were moving through Kira's bloodstream and tissue. They looked almost like miniature machines, each one perfectly designed and purposeful. As he watched, they were literally converting her organic cells into mineral compounds. "Kim, come look at this," he called to his assistant. Kim peered into the microscope and gasped. "What are those things? They look like tiny robots." "That's exactly what they are." Minho's mind was racing. "This isn't a curse or a disease. It's technology. Ancient technology." He ran more tests, checking samples from different parts of Kira's body. The results were consistent. Microscopic machines were systematically changing her biology from the inside out. But here was the interesting part. When he tested his own skin after handling her, nothing happened. The machines seemed to ignore human tissue completely. "They're programmed," he realized out loud. "These nanomachines are designed to only activate." "With Valorian DNA," Dr. Park frowned. "But why would anyone create something like this?" Minho was already researching, pulling up everything the station's computer had about Valorian history and ancient civilizations. Most of it was legend and folklore, but there were some interesting patterns. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a text on his screen. "Multiple Valorian cultures have stories about the long sleep and stone guardians. What if this wasn't meant to kill? What if it was meant to preserve?" Meanwhile, Kira's condition was getting worse. The stone had reached the bottom of her rib cage, and each breath was a struggle. Her normally melodic voice had become rough and strained. "Doctor," she gasped, "I can feel it moving inside me, like tiny insects crawling through my blood." Minho held her hand, the part that was still flesh and blood. "I know what's happening to you now. These are machines built by your ancestors thousands of years ago. They're not cursed, they're programmed." "But why?" she asked. "I think they were meant to put people into a kind of emergency sleep, like a medical stasis system. But something went wrong, or the knowledge of how to reverse it was lost." As if responding to their conversation, the grey stone suddenly surged upward, covering more of her chest. Kira cried out in pain and fear. "We're running out of time," Minho said grimly. "I need to find a way to stop these machines before they reach your heart." Minho spent the next several hours diving deep into research, while Kira's condition slowly worsened. The grey stone had now covered most of her torso, and her breathing came in short, painful gasps. But something about the nanomachines bothered him. They were too sophisticated, too carefully designed to be simple weapons. "Kira," he said gently, pulling a chair close to her bedside, "I need you to tell me everything you remember about your grandmother's stories, the ones about the old tunnels." Kira's eyes struggled to focus on him. Speaking was becoming harder as the stone crept toward her throat. She used to say our ancestors were very wise. They knew a great danger was coming to our world." "What kind of danger?" "A plague, something that would kill everyone. So the wisest among them chose to sleep until it passed." Her voice was barely a whisper now. "They became stone guardians, waiting for someone to wake them when it was safe." Minho felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in his mind. They weren't being punished, they were being saved. He rushed back to his microscope and studied the nanomachines again, but this time he looked at them differently. Instead of seeing destructive invaders, he tried to see them as protective systems. The way they moved through her bloodstream wasn't random. It was organized, methodical, like they were following a careful program. "These aren't killing you," he said, excitement building in his voice. "They're trying to preserve you. It's like the most advanced medical stasis system ever created." Kira managed a weak smile. "But I don't want to sleep for 1,000 years." "That's the problem. Your ancestors built this system, but somehow the knowledge of how to reverse it got lost over time. The nanomachines know how to put someone into stasis, but they don't know how to wake them up. Dr. Park approached with the latest test results. Minho, her vital signs are getting critical. Whatever these machines are doing, her body can't handle much more. Minho studied the bioelectric readings from Kira's body. The nanomachines seemed to operate on very specific frequency patterns, almost like they were communicating with each other through electrical signals. Then he looked at his own bioelectric readings from earlier tests. "That's it," he breathed. "Look at this, Park. Human. Neural patterns operate on completely different frequencies than Valorian ones. So what does that mean? It means these nanomachines might not recognize human bioelectric signatures. They're programmed to work with Valorian biology, but human brains and nervous systems work differently." Kira's eyes widened as much as they could. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying that maybe human bioelectric fields could interfere with their programming, like static disrupting a radio signal." Minho was pacing now, his mind working furiously. "If I could somehow connect my nervous system to yours, my brain patterns might confuse the nanomachines." Dr. Park looked alarmed. "That's incredibly dangerous. Minho, you don't know what those machines might do if they detect human tissue. They could adapt or they could attack you directly. But they ignored me completely when I was handling her earlier," Minho argued. "They seem to be specifically programmed to only affect Valorians." "That was just skin contact," Park warned. "What you're talking about is direct neural connection. The nanomachines might see that as a threat and respond defensively." Kira struggled to speak. Don't risk yourself for me." Minho knelt beside her bed. "Kira, I became a doctor to save lives. Your people have taught us so much about advanced medicine and biotechnology. If there's even a chance this could work, I have to try." "But what if the nanomachines learn to affect humans too?" Park asked. "You could doom our entire species." "Or I could save hers," Minho replied firmly. "Besides, look at the data. These machines are thousands of years old. They're following ancient programming. They're not designed to adapt or learn. They're designed to follow specific instructions." The stone had now reached Kira's collarbone. Her breathing was becoming more labored by the minute. "We're out of time," Minho said. "I'm going to try it." Minho worked quickly to set up the bioelectric field generator, his hands shaking slightly as he connected the complex array of sensors and wires. The machine hummed to life, its display showing wavelengths and neural patterns that most people couldn't even begin to understand. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" Dr. Park asked one more time, checking the equipment connections. "Once we start this process, there might not be a way to stop it safely." Minho looked at Kira, whose breathing had become so shallow that her chest barely moved. The grey stone had reached her shoulders and was creeping up her neck. They had minutes, maybe less, before it reached her brain. "I'm sure," he said, placing the neural interface headset on his head. The cold metal contacts pressed against his temples, sending small electric tingles across his scalp. Nurse Kim attached similar sensors to the few remaining patches of normal skin on Kira's body. "Her bioelectric activity is getting weaker," she reported. "Whatever we're going to do, it has to be now." Minho took a deep breath and reached for Kira's hand. Her fingers, now partially stone, felt cold and rough against his palm. "I'm going to try to connect our nervous systems. You might feel some strange sensations, but try to stay calm." Kira nodded weakly, her eyes showing both fear and trust. "Initiating bioelectric bridge," Minho announced, flipping the main switch. The moment the connection activated, pain exploded through both of their bodies. It felt like lightning was running through every nerve, every muscle, every cell. Minho's vision went white for a moment, and he heard Kira cry out, despite her weakened state. But something else was happening. Through the overwhelming pain, Minho began to sense things that weren't his own thoughts. Images flashed through his mind. Not human images, but something completely alien yet somehow familiar. He saw vast cities made of crystal and light, filled with beings that looked like Kira, but somehow more radiant, more alive. Their technology was beyond anything humans had achieved, seamlessly blending biology and machinery in ways that seemed like magic. What is this?" he gasped, his body trembling from the neural feedback. Through their connection, he could feel Kira's consciousness mixing with his own. "Racial memories," she whispered, her voice somehow clearer despite her physical condition. "Every Valorian carries them, but we rarely access them directly." The images shifted, becoming darker. Minho saw the same beautiful cities, but now they were under attack. Not by weapons or armies, but by something invisible, a plague that turned living beings into twisted, suffering creatures. The Valorians were dying by the millions. "The great sickness," Kira's voice echoed in his mind. "My ancestors faced extinction." So their greatest scientist created the stone sleep, a way to preserve life until the danger passed. But the nanomachines in Kira's body weren't cooperating with Minho's interference. They seemed to recognize that something foreign was disrupting their programming, and they began to fight back. The pain intensified, feeling like thousands of tiny needles stabbing through both their nervous systems. "They're resisting." Minho gritted his teeth, sweat pouring down his face. "The nanomachines are treating my bioelectric field as a threat." The stone on Kira's body began to spread faster, as if the nanomachines were trying to complete their work before Minho could stop them. Her neck was almost completely grey now, and the change was accelerating toward her head. "Don't give up," she said, though her voice was becoming distorted as the stone affected her throat. "I can feel you in my mind. Your thoughts are so different from ours, so chaotic, so creative." Through their neural link, Minho experienced more Valorian memories. He saw how their ancestors had volunteered for the stone sleep, lying down in special chambers, while the nanomachines slowly converted their bodies into living statues. They had expected to sleep for decades, maybe centuries, until their world was safe again. But something had gone wrong. The plague had ended, but the knowledge of how to reverse the process had been lost. The stone sleepers remained trapped in their preserved state, waiting for someone to figure out how to wake them. "That's why the caves are forbidden," Kira's thoughts merged with his. "Thousands of our people are still down there, sleeping in stone, waiting for salvation." The nanomachines suddenly surged with new intensity, causing both of them to scream in agony. Minho's vision began to blur as his own nervous system started to destabilize under the assault. "I won't let you win," he said through clenched teeth, pouring every ounce of his willpower into maintaining the connection. The pain was becoming unbearable. Minho felt like his entire nervous system was being torn apart by invisible hands. The nanomachines were fighting his bioelectric interference with everything they had, and his human body wasn't designed to handle this kind of assault. "Minho, your vitals are going critical," Dr. Park shouted over the sound of alarms. "Your brain activity is spiking beyond safe levels." But through the agony, something clicked in Minho's mind. He was thinking about this all wrong. He'd been trying to overpower the nanomachines, to force them to stop their programming through brute interference. But that wasn't working. They were too sophisticated, too determined to complete their task. "What if," he gasped, sweat streaming down his face, "what if I don't fight them? What if I work with them instead?" Through their neural connection, he could sense Kira's confusion. The stone had now reached her jaw, and speaking was nearly impossible for her. But her thoughts came through clearly. "What do you mean?" Instead of pushing his bioelectric field against the nanomachines like a battering ram, Minho began to study their patterns more carefully. Through the neural link, he could actually perceive how they communicated with each other. Tiny, electrical, pulses that carried complex instructions. They're not just machines, he realized. They're like a computer network, and every network has a programming language. The Valorian ancestors had been brilliant, but they'd thought in very structured, logical ways. Their programming was elegant but rigid. It followed predetermined paths without deviation. But human thinking was different. Humans were messy, creative, unpredictable. They found solutions by thinking outside the box. Minho began to send his own electrical patterns into the nanomachine network, not to disrupt them, but to communicate with them. It was like trying to speak a language he'd never learned, using nothing but electrical impulses and neural feedback. The nanomachines paused their work, as if confused by these strange new signals. For a moment, the stone stopped spreading up. "Kira's neck." "It's working," Nurse Kim whispered. "Her condition has stabilized." But Minho knew this was just the beginning. Now came the hard part. actually reprogramming thousands of microscopic machines using nothing but his brain's electrical activity. Through the neural link, he accessed more of Kira's racial memories, trying to understand how the original programmers had designed the system. The ancient Valorians had created a beautiful, complex network of nanomachines that could preserve life indefinitely. But they'd never considered that someone might need to reverse the process without the proper shutdown. Codes. "I need to write new code," Minho said through gritted teeth, "but I have to do it in a language made of electricity and pain." His approach was completely different from anything the Valorian programmers would have conceived. Where they had used careful step-by-step instructions, Minho created chaotic bursts of innovation. Where they had followed logical paths, he took creative leaps that seemed impossible. The nanomachines began to respond to his unconventional programming. Some of them started working backwards, slowly converting stone back into living tissue. But the process was fighting against millions of years of Valorian evolutionary thinking embedded in the machine's base code. "Your cellular structure is breaking down," Dr. Park warned. "Whatever you're doing is tearing apart your DNA at the molecular level." Minho could feel it. His own body was starting to fail under the strain of reprogramming alien technology with his bare thoughts. His vision was blurring and he could taste blood in his mouth, but he could also see grey stone on Kira's neck, slowly shifting back to blue skin. "I'm not stopping," he said firmly. "Humans don't give up. That's what makes us different." Through sheer stubborn determination, he continued rewriting the nanomachine network. Every pulse of electricity he sent into their system felt like it was tearing pieces of his soul away. But he refused to quit. "The stone is retreating." Kira's voice came through their link, stronger now as her throat cleared. Minho pushed harder, ignoring the warning signals from his own body. His uniquely human refusal to accept defeat was literally rewriting alien technology that had been unchanged for millennia. The moment when everything changed felt like watching a miracle happen in slow motion. Minho's desperate reprogramming finally broke through the ancient code, and the nanomachines began responding to his human creativity in ways their original creators never imagined. The grey stone on Kira's neck started to crack like old paint peeling off a wall. Tiny fissures appeared across the hardened surface, and through those cracks, glimpses of her natural blue skin began to show. It was the most beautiful thing Minho had ever seen. "It's working," Nurse Kim shouted, monitoring Kira's vital signs. "Her oxygen levels are improving," but something unexpected was happening. As the stone retreated down Kira's body, it wasn't simply disappearing. Instead, it was leaving behind intricate silver patterns on her blue skin, delicate lines that looked like lightning frozen in time, or rivers viewed from high above. Kira gasped as her throat fully cleared, taking her first deep breath in hours. "I can breathe again," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Minho, you did it." However, Minho was experiencing his own transformation. The intense neural connection and the process of reprogramming alien nanomachines had left permanent changes in his body. He could feel tiny machines flowing through his bloodstream, not enough to hurt him, but enough to create something entirely new. "Doctor," Dr. Park said, studying Minho's latest blood work, "you've got Valorian nanomachines in your system, but they're not petrifying you. They're just there." Minho touched his temple, where he could sense a strange new awareness. "I can feel them," he said wonderingly. "Not just the ones in my blood, but all of them. Every nanomachine in this facility." As Kira sat up slowly, testing her returned mobility, the silver patterns on her skin began to glow faintly. They pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, creating an otherworldly beauty that made everyone in the medical bay stare in amazement. "The patterns," Elder Zenth said, having arrived to witness what he'd thought would be Kira's final moments. "In our oldest legends, there are stories of the marked ones, those who survive the stone trial and become bridges between worlds." Kira looked at her hands, watching the silver lines flow across her skin like living art. "I feel different, stronger somehow, like I can sense things I never could before." But the most remarkable discovery came when Minho and Kira looked at each other. Through their shared experience with the nanomachines, they had developed a connection that went beyond normal understanding. They could sense each other's emotions, share thoughts without speaking, and together they could communicate with Valorian technology in ways that neither species had ever achieved alone. "This is incredible," Minho said, placing his hand near a Valorian computer terminal. Without touching it, the screen lit up and began displaying information. "The nanomachines in my bloodstream are acting like a bridge between human neural patterns and Valorian technology." Kira joined him, and when she placed her marked hand near his, the computer responded even more dramatically. Complex data streams began flowing across multiple screens, showing technical information that had been locked away for centuries. "We're like a living interface," she breathed. "Your human creativity combined with my Valorian heritage, all connected through the nanomachines." Dr. Park was taking notes frantically. "This could revolutionize how our species work together. You've essentially become a biological translator between human and Valorian technology." But the changes went deeper than just technical interfaces. Minho found that he could understand Valorian emotions and thought patterns in ways no human ever had. He could sense their deep connection to their racial memory, their profound respect for life and preservation, and their careful, methodical approach to problems. Meanwhile, Kira experienced human thinking for the first time, the chaotic creativity, the stubborn refusal to accept limitations, and the incredible ability to find solutions through pure determination, rather than logical progression. "We're both different now," Minho said, looking at his hands. "But I think we're different in exactly the right way." Kira smiled, her silver patterns glowing brighter. "The ancestors chose stone sleep to preserve life, but you found something better, a way to preserve life and keep it growing, changing, improving. They had become something new, not quite human, not quite Valorian, but a bridge between two species that could accomplish things neither could achieve alone." With their new abilities, Minho and Kira decided to explore the forbidden tunnels where this whole adventure had started. The silver patterns on Kira's skin glowed brighter as they approached the ancient entrance, and Minho could feel the nanomachines in his blood responding to something deep within the caves. "There's so much activity down there," Minho said, pressing his hand against the cave wall. "The nanomachines are practically humming with energy." Elder Zenth had insisted on coming with them, along with Dr. Park and a small team of researchers. As they descended deeper into the crystal caves, their lights revealed passages that stretched far beyond what anyone had previously explored. "These tunnels go on for kilometers," Dr. Park whispered, his voice echoing off the crystalline walls. "How did we never know about this?" Kira moved ahead, her marked skin providing a soft silver glow that illuminated their path. "The barriers were designed to keep people out, but now that I'm marked, they recognize me as authorized to enter." As they went deeper, the cave system opened into vast chambers that took their breath away. But it wasn't the size that amazed them. It was what filled these enormous spaces. Thousands upon thousands of stone figures stood in perfect rows, like an army frozen in time. Each one was clearly Valorian in shape, but made of the same grey stone that had nearly claimed Kira's life. Some were standing, others sitting or lying down, but all of them had the peaceful expressions of people who had chosen to sleep. "My ancestors," Kira breathed, moving among the stone figures. "They're all here, everyone who chose the long sleep instead of facing the plague." Minho approached one of the figures, a tall Valorian who looked like he might have been a scientist, based on the complex instruments carved into the stone around him. "They've been waiting here for thousands of years." Elder Zenth was practically trembling with emotion. "The lost generation. We always wondered what happened to them. Our population dropped by millions during the plague years, but we never found mass graves or any evidence of where they went." "They came here," Kira said simply. "They chose preservation over death, hoping someone would eventually figure out how to wake them." Using their combined abilities, Minho and Kira began to interface with the nanomachine networks that maintained each stone figure. The process was like reading a vast library, every person's final thoughts, their hopes, their reasons for choosing. Stone sleep were all preserved in the nanomachine data. "Look at this," Minho said, his hand glowing with a faint blue light as he accessed the information. "They didn't just randomly decide to sleep. They had a plan. They believed someone would come who could solve the problem they couldn't. Dr. Park was recording everything with his scanner. What kind of person were they waiting for? Kira closed her eyes, accessing deeper layers of the stored memories. Someone who thinks differently. Someone who doesn't accept that problems are impossible to solve. Someone who... She opened her eyes and looked directly at Minho. Someone exactly like you. Elder Zenth pulled out an ancient text that had been passed down through generations. The Prophecy of the Awakener, he read aloud. When the children of stone have slept their longest sleep, one will come who refuses the word impossible. Not of our blood, but of kindred spirit. Not bound by our wisdom, but freed by different sight. It's not magic or destiny, Minho realized. They were describing a specific type of thinking. Humans approach problems differently than Valorians. You're logical and methodical. We're stubborn and creative. They knew that their own way of thinking couldn't solve the reversal problem, Kira added. So they waited for someone whose mind worked completely differently. Using the techniques Minho had developed to save Kira, they began the delicate process of awakening the stone sleepers. It was exhausting work. Each person required individual attention, careful reprogramming of their personal nanomachine networks. But as the first few Valorians began to stir, cracking free from their stone shells, word of their success spread through the station. The awakened Valorians looked at Minho with a mixture of awe and gratitude. "You are the one we dreamed of," said the first awakened scientist, her voice rusty from millennia of silence. "The one who sees solutions where we see only problems." "I'm just a human who doesn't like giving up," Minho replied modestly. Anyone from my species would have done the same thing. But as more Valorians awakened and shared their ancient memories, it became clear that this moment would change both species forever. The humans had proven that their chaotic creativity could solve problems that even advanced Valorian science couldn't handle, and the Valorians offered knowledge and technology that could benefit all of humanity. The cave chambers that had been silent for thousands of years now rang with voices, laughter, and the sounds of two species beginning to truly understand each other. Over the following weeks, Research Station Alpha 7 transformed into something nobody had ever imagined. What had once been a quiet scientific outpost became the center of the most important cultural exchange in galactic history. Every day, Minho and Kira worked together to awaken more Valorians from their ancient stone sleep. The process had become smoother with practice, but each awakening was still a profound moment. When the grey stone cracked away from a Valorian's body, revealing blue skin underneath, it was like watching someone be born again after thousands of years. Dr. Hyun was one of the first ancient Valorians to fully recover. She had been a master engineer before the plague, and her knowledge of crystal technology was beyond anything the modern Valorians possessed. But what fascinated her most wasn't her own advanced science. It was watching how humans solved problems. "Incredible," she said, observing Minho repair a broken medical scanner using nothing but spare parts and creative thinking. "You don't follow any logical progression, you just leap to solutions." Minho laughed, tightening a connection with a tool that definitely wasn't designed for that purpose. "My engineering professor would probably cry if he saw me using a medical probe as a screwdriver, but it works." "That's exactly what I mean," Dr. Hyun said excitedly. "We Valorians would spend days calculating the proper tool specifications. You just grabbed whatever was handy and made it work." The awakened Valorians brought with them knowledge that had been lost for millennia. They shared secrets of energy, manipulation, biological preservation, and crystal technology that could revolutionize human science. But in return, they were amazed by human innovations that seemed impossible by their standards. Engineer Taemin showed them how humans had developed faster-than-light travel using principles that the ancient Valorians had dismissed as too chaotic and unpredictable. "How your ships shouldn't work," laughed Dr. Mire, an awakened Valorian physicist. "The mathematical models say it's impossible." "Yeah, we get that a lot," Taemin grinned. "We humans have a talent for making impossible things work anyway." The cultural exchange went both ways. The Valorians taught humans about patience, careful observation, and the importance of thinking through long-term consequences. Their approach to medicine was so advanced that Dr. Park spent hours each day learning techniques that could extend human lifespans by centuries. Meanwhile, the humans taught Valorians about improvisation, creative problem-solving, and the power of refusing to accept limitations. The awakened Valorians were particularly fascinated by human art, music, and literature, forms of expression that their logical minds had never fully developed. "You create beauty for no practical purpose," marveled Dr. G1, studying human paintings that had been sent from Earth. "It serves no survival function, yet it moves something deep inside me." Kira, with her silver markings still glowing softly, had become a bridge between the two ways of thinking. "Beauty is practical," she explained. "It feeds the spirit. Humans understand that survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about having reasons to want to be alive." The most remarkable breakthroughs came when humans and Valorians worked together on projects. Combining human creativity with Valorian precision produced innovations that neither species could have achieved alone. They developed new medical technologies that could heal injuries instantly, energy systems that were both incredibly efficient and completely clean, and communication devices that could translate not just words, but emotions and concepts between species. "We're becoming something new," Minho observed, watching a mixed team of humans and Valorians solve a complex engineering problem. "Not just two species working together, but something that's greater than the sum of our parts." The awakened Valorians had quickly adapted to the modern world, but they brought with them wisdom from an age when their civilization was at its peak. They helped both species understand that diversity of thinking wasn't just useful, it was essential for solving the biggest challenges. "We made a mistake thousands of years ago," admitted Elder Korath, one of the oldest awakened Valorians. "We thought our way of thinking was the only correct way. We nearly went extinct because we couldn't adapt when faced with something our logic couldn't handle. And we humans sometimes rush into things without thinking them through," Minho replied. "But together, we balance each other out." The success of the Awakening Project had attracted attention from across the galaxy. Other species sent representatives to learn about the human-Valorian partnership, hoping to understand how two completely different civilizations could work together so effectively. 6 months after the first awakening, Minho and Kira stood at the entrance to unexplored sections of the cave system that stretched even deeper into the planet's core. Their partnership had grown stronger with each passing day, and together they had become the leading experts on human-Valorian cooperation. "The scanner readings are off the charts down there," Minho said, checking his equipment one final time. "Whatever's in those deeper tunnels, it's big." Kira's silver markings pulsed with excitement as she sensed the nanomachine activity far below. "The awakened elders say there are chambers down there that even they never explored, places that were sealed before the Great Sleep began." Their expedition team was a perfect example of how much had changed. Dr. Park worked alongside Dr. Hyan, the ancient Valorian engineer. Human geologist Dr. Sumin partnered with awakened Valorian crystal specialist Dr. Junho. Every team member brought different skills and perspectives that complemented each other perfectly. As they descended into the unexplored depths, their lights revealed wonders that took their breath away. The crystal formations grew larger and more complex the deeper they went, creating cathedral-like spaces that sparkled with their own inner light. But it wasn't just the natural beauty that amazed them. It was the technology. "These aren't natural caves," Dr. Hyan breathed, running her hands over walls that showed clear signs of advanced engineering. "Someone built this. Someone with technology far beyond what even we possessed." The tunnels led to a massive chamber that dwarfed anything they'd seen before. In the center stood a structure that looked like a combination of temple and laboratory. Graceful spires made of living crystal that hummed with barely contained energy. "It's a research facility," Kira realized, her enhanced senses picking up information that others couldn't detect. "But not Valorian. This is something much older." Minho approached one of the crystal interfaces, his nanomachine-enhanced blood, allowing him to connect with the ancient systems. Images flowed through his mind, not Valorian racial memories this time, but something far more profound. "There were others," he said in amazement. "Before the Valorians, before humans, there was another species. They built this place as a testing ground. The facility contained records of dozens of different species, each one facing extinction-level challenges. The mysterious builders had created trials designed to test whether civilizations could overcome their limitations and work together with others who thought differently. The stone sleep wasn't just about surviving the plague, Dr. Junho said, accessing deeper data files. It was a test, a way to see if the Valorians could adapt their thinking enough to accept help from outsiders. And humans were the answer they were waiting for, Dr. Park added. Our refusal to accept impossible situations was exactly what the test required. But the most incredible discovery was yet to come. The facility contained not just records of past tests, but active preparation for future challenges. The ancient builders had foreseen threats that wouldn't emerge for millions of years. Cosmic disasters, technological singularities, evolutionary dead ends that could destroy entire galactic civilizations. They're preparing us, Minho realized. The human-Valorian partnership isn't the end goal. It's training for something much bigger. Kira's silver patterns glowed brighter as she accessed the facility's core systems. There are other species out there, facing their own extinction trials. Right now, and there will be more in the future. The builders wanted to create partnerships that could help civilizations survive anything. The revelation changed everything. What had started as a medical emergency for one Valorian girl had uncovered humanity's true purpose in the galaxy. They weren't just explorers or scientists. They were problem solvers, bridge builders, the species that could help others overcome seemingly impossible challenges. So what do we do now? Dr. Sumin asked, staring at the vast database of future challenges. Minho looked at Kira, then at their mixed team of humans and Valorians who had become more than colleagues. They had become family. We do what humans do best, he said with a grin. We get to work. The cave facility became the headquarters for a new kind of organization, one dedicated to finding civilizations in crisis and helping them discover solutions they never thought possible. Human determination combined with Valorian wisdom, guided by ancient knowledge and powered by the understanding that no problem was truly unsolvable. What had begun as a curse had become the foundation for the greatest adventure in galactic history.